Seattle's skyline blinked like a row of false promises, glittering under the winter night as laughter spilled from the rooftop gala. My heels clicked softly against a stone, muffled beneath music and glass clinks. This was a world meant to dazzle. The hotel's rooftop shimmered with gold and black, the theme reflecting off every mirrored surface. Each guest polished like award night royalty. I stepped in quietly, not expecting applause, just acknowledgement, a nod, a smile that said, "We see you." Instead, the only reflection I caught was in the window, my own eyes staring back, unsure if I belonged. The program booklet rested on a crystal table, elegant and harmless until I opened it. I scanned the list of honorees, strategists, executives, foundation leads. My finger paused. No cane. My name wasn't there. Not once. A dull pressure built in my chest. My lips curved upward, an instinctive smile that tasted like copper. I glanced at Rowan across the room. He raised his glass, distracted, already halfway through conversation. A guest beside me leaned in, lips glossed in polite venom. "You must be the plus one." Rowan mentioned a guest. I nodded, too tightly. My name forgotten, my work buried. I hadn't been overlooked. I had been erased. A flicker on the far wall caught my eye. A montage played, celebrating the company's legacy, faces, laughter, achievements. Then there I was, blurry in the corner of an old project photo. No caption, no name, just a face behind a success someone else owned. The spotlight skipped me. Near the reception, staff handed out updated dress code notices. Black and gold formal, the papers read. I looked down. Simple cocktail dress. Understated, practical, wrong. Behind me, Damien Holt's voice coiled like smoke. "Hope you don't feel overdressed, dear." Laughter rippled, faint but sharp-edged. My spine stiffened. Cameras clicked, not for me. I inhaled once, steady. The whisper of past galas echoed. Days when jeans and effort were enough. Now image reigned. I stepped aside and caught the tremble in a young intern's hands at the coat check. She shivered in thin sleeves, biting her lip. Without thinking, I slipped my coat off and draped it over her. "You'll need this more than I do," I said. She smiled, stunned. Not all kindness has to be loud. The room began to hush as Damien took the stage. His voice, too loud, too self-assured, boomed. "Let's honor this year's outstanding project lead." The room clapped, expectant. "Eliza Holt," he announced. Applause erupted. I froze. Eliza, my sister-in-law, floated up in a gown the color of ambition. I didn't move. My ears rang, heartbeat surged. The lights caught my eyes and blurred everything. It wasn't the shock that hurt. It was how smoothly the audience accepted it, like I'd never existed. No one questioned it, not even Rowan. He wasn't beside me, hadn't been for a while. I pressed my hands behind my back, fingers curling into fists. No tears. Not here. Not now. From behind me, someone murmured, "That must be a mistake." Another, "She's only been here a year." But no one corrected it aloud. Civility, it seemed, was just cruelty in evening wear. I stepped back, letting the shadow swallow me. When the cameras turned to Eliza, I turned toward the balcony. The night air bit harder than I expected. Seattle's winter wasn't cruel, but tonight it was honest. I leaned against the railing, watching the blur of headlights below. So many people, none of whom knew how much I gave to build what stood behind me. Nights hunched over code. Reports revised at 2 a.m. mentorships, pitches, launch crises. I remembered each one. The company remembered the press photos. They don't remember effort. They remember image. I whispered the words aloud, tasting the bitterness. My phone buzzed. Rowan. "Hope you're okay." That was it. I locked the screen. Silence followed. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that filled your lungs and pushed against your ribs. I let settle. I still have my integrity, I told myself, softer this time. I meant it. I had to. I straightened. Not for applause. Not to reclaim anything. But because no one else was going to guard my dignity. As I walked back inside, the lights in the ballroom flickered. The laughter dipped. Just for a moment. And that's when everything began to shift. The morning after the gala tasted of burnt coffee and betrayal. My inbox blinked like an alarm I hadn't heard go off. Urgent. Internal audit investigation. It came from legal, never a good sign. I clicked it with a hesitation I rarely allowed myself. Accusations. Words stacked like loaded dice. Unauthorized access. Altered quarterly reports. Data integrity breach. All tied to my user ID. I froze, chest tightening. This wasn't some clerical error. This was a takedown dressed in policy language. My screen locked moments later. Another notification. System access suspended pending investigation. Company procedure. Cold, clean, and fast like guillotine law. I stared at the blank login screen. Fingers twitching against the keyboard that no longer responded to me. I didn't do this, I whispered aloud. But the truth? That didn't matter when perception had already been weaponized. Marin Cho hovered near the edge of my desk, eyes darting. Aurelia, something's off. I saw server flags last week, strange access logs. But then it disappeared from the admin queue. She didn't have to finish. She'd seen something. And someone made sure she couldn't prove it. You okay? She asked softly. No, but I will be. I opened the HR notice. My termination was preset to trigger at 5 p.m., just enough time to clear my name or vanish from their memory entirely. My cursor hovered over the inbox. I didn't delete a thing. The truth would need every breadcrumb left untouched. Later that morning, I pulled out my old laptop, the one I'd kept for legacy backups and personal audit logs. It still had partial network access through a secondary account. Enough for me to scan internal logs, trace the discrepancies. Within 20 minutes, I saw it. Elevated access rights tagged under my name, backdated. The change was logged under administrative override, approved by Damien Holt. I leaned back, eyes narrowing. This wasn't damage control. This was planned. I paid a visit to Archerwin. His desk was a mess of empty energy drink cans and tangled cables, but his memory was sharp, always had been. Hey, Archer. Weird question. Who signed off on the latest access override batch for finance systems? He hesitated, eyes flickering. I mean, protocol changed last Tuesday. Serena was in the room with Holt. Didn't realize it was confidential. There it was. Serena Holt. The woman I once shielded from a disciplinary note for misreporting Q2 data 2 years ago. I remembered sitting across from her, watching her panic, watching her plead. One mistake shouldn't cost someone their future, I'd said. She hadn't repaid the grace. She'd used it as leverage. As I walked back through the hall, I spotted a janitor kneeling by the vending machine, reaching under it awkwardly. Drop something. I asked. My ring, he said sheepishly. Wedding band. I knelt beside him, pressed my fingers beneath the base plate, and found it lodged beside a quarter. He smiled, palm opening as I dropped it in. Thank you, ma'am. Don't know what I'd tell her if I lost it. Some things aren't meant to be replaced, I said. The boardroom was colder than the rooftop had been. My seat, furthest from the head, came with silence. All eyes were on me, though no one spoke my name. The chair read the charges. Damien's voice chimed in, smooth, deliberate. This is standard diligence, nothing personal. That's what they say right before they pull the trigger. The double doors burst open. Rowan entered, tie undone, coat still damp from the rain. His presence turned heads like a fire alarm. He placed a small USB drive on the table. Before we destroy a woman's career, let's see what the servers actually say. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. I conducted a separate digital audit over the past month as part of our ethics partnership with the Data Oversight Bureau. What I found is disturbing. The projector lit up. A series of security logs scrolled down. The following footage, he said, shows Mr. Holt directing IT to assign financial assets under a falsified credential. My wife's login. Gasps. Papers shuffled. No one blinked. Then came the emails. Serena's signature. As HR lead, I request elevated access rights under Employee ID AK 01178 for Q3 reconsolidation. They used my initials, my ID, my work history. One board member looked at me, shocked. Another mouthed an apology. Rowan stood still, arms crossed. But it was the silence in his eyes that said more. He didn't rush to defend me. He didn't need to. The evidence did that on its own. The chair turned to me. Mrs. Kane, would you like to submit formal charges against Mr. Holt and Ms. Holt? I sat taller. I want accountability, not blood. A hush spread. There's a difference, I added. I don't believe in revenge. I believe in repair. But you can't repair what you refuse to confront. Serena stood suddenly, heels clicking. She muttered something, excuse confusion, and walked out before anyone could stop her. Damien remained frozen, pale, exposed. No one moved to support him. Rowan came to my side, his hand warm against my back. I leaned in, lips near his ear. This isn't over, but now we begin on my terms. The morning headlines hit like cold rain. Sabotage allegations, Rock Hale Corporation. My phone buzzed until the glass turned blurry. Reports, retweets, comments flooded in. Damien Holt was placed on administrative leave under investigation. Rumors swirled about Serena's resignation. The company's PR team scrambled, offering one vague statement. Under review. I never signed anything. I never spoke to the press. I sat at my kitchen table, wind from the open window, stirring the empty coffee cup before me. Leora Pace called, her voice tight, trembling. She had the extra footage. Quiet hours before the gala. She saw Serena coaching IT to reroute administrative privileges under my login. She recorded it. She saved it. You didn't betray them, I told her softly over the line. You protected the truth. That's courage, Leora. I closed my eyes and breathed. I thought of a phrase I once saved on a sticky note. Don't chase thrones. Build rooms where no one fears to speak. I wasn't here to claim a throne. I was here to build a room. Night fell. I made my way through Hale Corp's rooftop parking garage, heels echoing on concrete. Lights flickered overhead. Damien stood under a single lamp, a tall figure casting a long shadow. You think this changes who the family sees as one of us? He asked, voice low, heavy. I kept my distance, keys curled tight in my hand. No, I said. I think it changes who I see as worth belonging to. He laughed, but it sounded empty. You destroyed my reputation. You did that, I replied. I just stopped covering for it. No one walked me out. No police. No dramatic confrontation. Only the distant hum of the city and the echo of my own resolve. I turned and walked away. Days later, the board offered me a position on their newly formed Ethics Oversight Council. Silence met the offer. I looked at Rowan across the polished table, the man who saw truth when everyone else saw a false profile. You don't need another name to fix your culture, I told them. You need to listen to the ones you tried to erase. I declined. Rowan and I filed paperwork that afternoon. We opened a consulting studio dedicated to ethical data governance, a sanctuary for whistleblowers, for voices silenced by power. Marin Cho joined us. Paperwork signed, cases logged, nonprofit status filed. That night I wrote an envelope. Inside was a letter to Serena Holt. I didn't accuse. I didn't shame. I just closed the door. No longer your shadow. I choose sunlight. 2 weeks later, we stood in front of a room full of strangers in California. Analysts, advocates, investors. Lights warmed the stage. The air smelled of possibility. I stepped up to the podium. "We are not just what we build," I said, voice steady, eyes calm. "We are what we allow." And I stopped allowing erasure. When the applause came, I closed my eyes. I pictured that rooftop gala, the empty seat, the forgotten name. The memory sharpened the light I now stood in. I stood not for vengeance, but for dignity. Not for a throne, but for a foundation. My name echoed in that hall long before the mic went quiet.